There is a root you can pull out of your own garden in October. Wipe the dirt off on your sleeve and bite into raw, and it tastes like somebody mixed a crisp apple with a spoonful of honey. I am not being poetic. That is the actual flavor. People tasting it for the first time usually stop chewing and look at the root like it has done something wrong. It is called skirret, Siam cisarum, and almost nobody alive today has heard of it, let alone grown it. Do me a favor right now, before I go one sentence further. Type the word skirret in the comments, just the word. I want to see how many of you are hearing this name for the very first time. And if you already grow it, do not type skirret. Type the word growing, because I want to find you in that comment section and actually talk to you. There are not many of you left. Here is what makes this genuinely strange. It is not rare because it is hard to grow. It is not rare because it tastes bad. It is not rare because it needs a greenhouse or a warm climate. It is a perennial. You plant it one time, it comes back every year off the same crown and hands you food every autumn for as long as you keep the bed. Ordinary garden soil. It shrugs off deer. No serious pests worth naming. Hardy through hard winters. And it vanished anyway. I am going to give you 4 things. What it actually tastes like, including the part most videos leave out. The one real flaw it has, which I am not going to hide from you. Exactly how to grow it, including the mistake that ruins the roots, and the reason it disappeared, which has nothing to do with the plant and everything to do with how food started being sold. Let us start with the name, because the name tells you almost the whole story. In English, it is skirret, from the Middle English skirwit or skirwort, which just meant white root. Plain enough. But go across Europe, and something happens. In language after language, the name translates to some version of sugar root. Germans call it Zuckerwurzel, sugar root. Country after country, the people who actually grew it named it after the one thing they noticed first. That is not a coincidence. That is a whole continent agreeing about a flavor. So here is my second question for you, and I genuinely want the answers. If you are watching this from outside the English-speaking world, tell me in the comments what this plant is called where you are. I want to build a list. I have a feeling half of you are going to tell me it means sugar root in your language too. Now, the plant itself. Skirret is in the Apiaceae family, which is the carrot family. Carrots, parsnips, celery, parsley, dill, same tribe. And you can see it. It throws up a tall stem, 3 to 4 feet, topped with flat white umbels that look almost exactly like Queen Anne's lace. Bees love it. If you never ate a single root, it would still earn its corner as a pollinator plant. But under the ground, it does something a carrot does not do. It does not make one big taproot. It makes a cluster, a crown at the top with a whole handful of long, thin, white roots hanging off it, like fingers or like a bunch of pale, skinny carrots, all joined at one point. That cluster is the harvest. And that shape, that cluster, is going to turn out to be the single most important detail in this entire story. Hold on to it. I will come back to it. It grows wild across Eastern Europe, Central and Northern Asia, and into Iran, and it has been cultivated so long nobody can put a firm date on it. And it was not some obscure peasant crop. The story goes that the Roman Emperor Tiberius was so fond of it that he demanded it as tribute from the Germanic tribes. This is a man who could have anything on earth brought to his table, and what he wanted shipped in from the north was this root. It stayed on European tables for well over 1,000 years after that. It was a staple through the Tudor and Stuart periods in England, right through into the 1700s. There are recipes for something called a skirret pie. It was in the cookbooks. It was in the kitchen gardens. It was normal. And then, over the course of about 1 century, it simply stopped being mentioned. By the 1800s, it had fallen out of the cookbooks almost entirely. It went from ordinary to invisible. Quick pause. If you have made it this far, and this is genuinely new information to you, hit that like button, because it tells me you want more of the forgotten crops, and I have a long list of them. And in the comments, tell me one vegetable your grandparents grew that you never see anymore. Not one you read about. One you actually remember on their table. I read those. All right, let us talk about what it tastes like, because I want to be straight with you rather than sell you something. Raw, straight out of the ground, the flavor is sweet. Properly sweet, not vaguely sweet. There is an intense carrot note in the skin, and underneath it, a sweetness that people reach for apples and honey to describe because there is no better comparison sitting around. Some get a faint pepper note at the end. Some get something almost like coconut or vanilla underneath. It varies by strain, soil, and season. Cooked is a different vegetable altogether. The texture goes soft and silky and slightly starchy, closer to a potato than a carrot. And the sweetness comes forward hard. Roast them with fat and salt, and they caramelize like nothing else in the root bed. Drop them in a soup, and they break down, thickening it and sweetening it at the same time. And here is a detail that matters. Frost improves it. Leave the roots in the ground and let the cold hit them before you dig, the way you would with parsnips, and the sweetness goes up noticeably. This is not folklore. It is the plant converting stored starch as it responds to cold. So the harvest window is autumn into winter, and there is no rush. There is also a bonus crop nobody mentions. The plant overwinters, and in spring it pushes out fresh young shoots before almost anything else in the garden is awake. Those are edible too. Spring greens and autumn roots off the same crown you planted once. Now, the flaw. I promised you honesty, so here it is, and this is the part where I am going to lose some of you. Most skirret roots have a thin, woody core running down the middle of them. A thread of tough fiber, like a stiff string, and no amount of cooking will soften it. If you bite into a root and hit that, it is unpleasant. It is the reason a lot of people try skirret once and never bother again. So let me tell you how to deal with it, because it is far more manageable than the internet makes it sound. First, do not try to remove the core raw. That is where people lose patience. Cook the root first, then hold it down with a fork and pull the core out. It comes away with almost no resistance. The skin does the same. Do not peel skirret before cooking. Boil it and the skin slips off in your fingers. Second, and this is the one that changes your results, fat roots have less core than skinny roots, and skinny stringy roots are a symptom, not a variety problem. The symptom points at water. Skirret grows wild in damp places, and if you let it go dry through summer, you get thin, fibrous roots with a core you cannot ignore. Water it, feed the soil, and the roots come out fatter, sweeter, and far easier to eat. Third, be patient. First-year roots are often thin and woody. Most people who grow it well will tell you to leave the plant in for a second season before you take a serious harvest. That is not a failure. That is just what a perennial does. It is building. And fourth, and I want to be fair here, the core varies by strain. Some seed lines are noticeably better than others. So if you buy skirret and the first crop is stringy, that is not the end of the story. All right, be honest with me in the comments. Now that you know about the woody core, are you still in? Comment the word in if you would still plant it, or comment the word out if that just killed it for you. I actually want to see the split on this one, because I think it explains a lot about why this plant is where it is. Which brings me to the real question. Why did it disappear? There are two answers, and the second one is the important one. The first answer is the potato. When it arrived in Europe, it did to skirret what it did to a lot of old root crops. But pay attention to why. Not because the potato tastes better, because a potato is easier. You dig it, wash it, cook it. No cluster of skinny roots to clean around, no core to pull. The potato won on convenience, not on flavor. That is the answer most people give, and stop there. But it does not explain why skirret disappeared so completely that it fell out of the cookbooks entirely, while other old crops hung on. So here is the second answer. Remember that cluster of thin roots I told you to hold on to? You cannot machine harvest that. You cannot grate it, wash it, and pack it on a line. You cannot ship it in a standard crate. Everything about the shape of this plant is wrong for industrial agriculture, from the field all the way to the supermarket shelf. A crop has to be uniform to be sold at scale, and skirret is the opposite of uniform. And then there is the part that I find hard to get past. It is a perennial. You buy it once, you plant it once. Every autumn after that, you dig the clump, break off the fat roots for the kitchen, and replant the crown with a couple of the thin roots still attached. And it comes back forever, for free. There is no business in a plant like that. Nobody builds a supply chain around a vegetable that a customer buys a single time in their entire life. So it did not fail. It was simply never worth anyone's money to keep it in front of you. It sat there, still growing, still sweet, still perennial, while the shelves filled up with things that had to be bought again every single spring. I want to hear what you make of that. Comment below and tell me straight. Do you think that is just how markets work and nobody is to blame, or do you think something was taken from us? I am not going to tell you what to think, but I read every one of those, and this is the conversation I actually want to have. All right, practical part. How to grow it. You can start from seed or from crowns, and they are very different experiences. Seed is cheap and fussy. It germinates poorly if you just push it into warm soil in spring. It wants cold first. Give it 2 to 4 weeks damp in the fridge before you sow. Then start it indoors roughly 8 to 10 weeks before your last frost. Or take the lazier route, sow outdoors in autumn and let winter do the stratifying, which is what the plant expects anyway. Either way, expect patchy germination and sow more than you think you need. Crowns are the shortcut. If you can find a supplier selling live crowns or root divisions, buy those instead. You skip the germination lottery entirely and you get a harvest a full year sooner. And you only ever need to do it once, which is the whole point of this plant. Sight. Sun or part shade, both work. Skirret is genuinely happy in partial shade, which makes it one of the very few food crops for the corner that never gets full sun. If you have a bed you wrote off because it only gets morning light, this is a candidate. Soil. Deep, loose, and moist. Those 3 words are the entire job. Deep and loose, so the roots run straight instead of forking. Moist, because moisture is the difference between fat, sweet roots and thin, stringy ones. If your ground is heavy clay or dry sand, fix that first with compost, or grow it in a deep, raised bed. This is the one thing I would not compromise on. Spacing. Give each plant about a foot, a little more if your soil is good, because that crown is going to fatten up over the years and it will keep expanding. Feeding. It will survive on nothing. It grows wild. But there is a difference between surviving and giving you good roots, and Skirret rewards decent soil more than most people expect. A layer of compost in autumn is enough. You do not need to buy anything. Harvest. Wait for the frost. Dig the whole clump with a fork, not a spade, and lift it out. Now sit down with it. Break the fat roots off for the kitchen. Take the crown with 2 or 3 of the thinner roots still attached and put it straight back in the ground. That is it. That is the loop. Every autumn, for the rest of your life, from one purchase. And you can split that crown as it grows. One plant becomes 2, becomes 4. Give the divisions away. That is how this plant survived at all. Not through catalogs, through people handing it over the fence. Now the honest note, and I am not going to skip it. Skirret is in the carrot family, and the carrot family contains some of the most dangerous plants in the temperate world. Water hemlock, poison hemlock. Plants that look, to an untrained eye, a bit like a white-flowered umbel on a tall stem, which is exactly what Skirret looks like. So I will say this as plainly as I can. Do not go looking for this in a ditch. Do not identify it from a photograph. Buy your seed or your crowns from a real supplier, put it in a bed you control, and know what is in your own ground. Grown that way, it is completely safe, and it has fed people for 2,000 years. Foraged carelessly, the family it belongs to will kill you. Both of those things are true, and you should hold both. And who should not grow this? Let me be fair. If your soil is dry and sandy and you have no intention of amending it, skip Skirret. You will get string. If you want one big clean root you can peel in 10 seconds, skip it. Grow parsnips. They are excellent. And if you need results this season, it is the wrong plant. Skirret pays out in year 2 and gets better in year 3. But if you have a damp, shady corner doing nothing. If you like the idea of a food plant, you buy once. If you have ever stood in a supermarket looking at a plastic bag and thought, my grandparents did not do this, then this is your plant, and it has been sitting in a seed vault and in a few stubborn gardens, waiting the whole time. So here is what I want from you before you go. If you are going to try it, comment the word planting. Just that one word. I want to see how many of us come out of this video and put a bet in, because if enough of you do it, this plant stops being a curiosity and starts being normal again. That is genuinely how it comes back. And tell me one more thing. What is the strangest thing you have ever eaten straight out of your own garden? Not from a shop. Out of the dirt off your own ground. Best answer in the comments gets pinned, and I will read them all. The seed is still out there. The plant never stopped working. It never stopped tasting like apple and honey. It just stopped being sold, and we mistook that for it being gone. Plant one bed. Next October, pull a root, wipe it on your sleeve, and find out for yourself.